Good morning, and thank you for showing up and listening and joining our gang. If you're a gal and you're a single mom, we want to kidnap you. How much? We want to know what your budget is. What kind of income do you have, and what are your expenses? And then we want to grab you and put you back into the 1950s in the United States, where you were a common housewife and you had a family budget, a husband and 2.2 children to take care of. You also had a three-bedroom brick house on a half-acre lot, and that home economics is what gets you out of poverty and into plenty. 10-year-olds can't pay for their mommies, mommies can't take care of their children and go out into the workplace. That actually is a job that's considered a profession over here. And so the husband and wife is viewed as a one unit, and that home economics, that family unit, is the smallest economic thing. And then just to make sure it's said, you go off to the side and you start with farming and mining, then above that, manufacturing, and above that, wholesale, retail, and repair, and above that, retirement, education, and recreation. And uh, the doctors and lawyers form a kind of lattice that holds it all together. And the priest causes it to come into being to begin with. This comes out of the Pope and monks in monasteries. It's actually a religious thing, and that's how you get the religion in it. It's one of the two intellectual positions, and behind that you have to be normal and well-adjusted, which isn't a natural thing, and will the good of another person. And there are two famous arguments. I think they're the fourth and fifth way of Aquinas: the truth of the truth and the decent of the decent. Or in our world, the gal who changes the dirty diapers gets, and the priest who takes a vow of poverty maximizes profits. And they go together like two segments of a line that form the lowercase letter I. And the dot on the letter I is the religious part of it. And so we want to kidnap you. Right now, they threw that out. They threw that out in the 1970s. In the 1950s, the communists said they would overthrow the United States by about 1973, and there was an upheaval in our society. They completely changed everything. They didn't march in with tanks and troops, but they did throw bombs in the street, and they did change our society from home economics to individual rights. Along with it, the things, peasant to property class society, it looks just like this. I remember from our anecdotes, the lazy V. It's called the lazy V. And so you turn on the computer and you're listening to gals, and this one gal is in her closet, and she's in her closet because her toddler is, they're sharing a bedroom. She doesn't want to wake the little guy up. And she says, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And you can't do that. It's physically impossible. You can't take care of the kid and go out and work and do this. There's not enough hours in the day. And so you'll break. And if you change the scale, society will break. In fact, it's a communist thing. It's sort of the top of the class communist thing to push us into a consumption society. And they did. And you keep it up long enough, and our society will crash. And everybody will starve. They'll come in and take over, do it again. And so if it'll all come down to you. If you're a gal, you're just going to have to speak up. Enough is enough of this. This is how much money I need to set up shop to get people out of poverty and into plenty. And if you're a guy, if you're our proverbial plumber, is what they used to say in my school days, how many hours would you have to work in order to come up with that budget? I promise you it's going to be more than 40. And if you know those two numbers, then you know how to get started, and you know where you are, you know where to go to. What's wrong? They threw out God and country. They threw out straightening up our emotions, willing the good of another person, and doing it because of Christ rose on the third day. In the 70s, courts came out and said, we shall have no religion in government. And that was the Twilight Zone moment where they snuck it in. With that, they institutionalized pulling a bum's rush. They institutionalized hustling. They had the sexual revolution, and they made it okay to go out and make money by causing other people to have to work more hours. You're just you're receiving the fruits of all of that. And they didn't. They got to move into the foothills. They had a chance to either get onto a maintenance level or cash in on everything, and they chose to cash in on everything. And they moved into the foothills, and they became professional consumers, and you became professional producers, and they split the two up. And now you're in dire straits. Now they want you to do things such as put your child in a daycare center and go work in a factory and that sort of thing. I don't think that's what you had in mind. I hope not. And so I hope you'll join this gang in the playground. You just say, enough is enough. This is what I need to set things right. Fork over the credit card, and then you can get something done. And if you're a young man, how many hours would you have to work? I warn you of something. If you're a gal, you're going to have to stand up to the women's liberation movement, and it's going to hit your gut. If you're a guy, you're going to have to stand. If you're a plumber, you're going to have to stand up to the plumbers unions, and it's just going to hit your gut. If you're a guy, if you're, say, a black gal, you're going to have to stand up, if it's a category of being black, to the black civil rights movement, and if it's a category of being woman, to the women's liberation movement. And if you're a guy, you're going to have to stand up to the Darwin alpha male, the guy who just had a chance to cash in on it all, and he did. He doesn't go out and defend the poor and the oppressed. He goes to the elementary school, finds people smaller than them, and he becomes a tough guy on campus. And it works. You'll notice at the time they got in, it was quite common to get into gold and real estate. And that was the era where they would, instead of putting you in your own business or putting you in your own franchise, they would get into a house and then get into a duplex and get somebody else to pay for their mortgage. And when they did that, it caused people who were in the lower part of that huge middle class to drop out of middle class. They had to start renting, and they became a peasant class. And it just grew and grew. And that's what it's supposed to, that's how it works. They caused poverty. And so we're hoping that you'll hear this and say, enough is enough. Just to say something out loud. Oh, excuse me. When we have lots of anecdotes here, there's a YouTube channel called Priest and a Pimp, and another YouTube channel, which has a real long name, Priest and a Pimp Media Access. And I'm going to try and put everything up there on one. And there's lots of anecdotes there. I hope you listen to some of them. And on Facebook and Instagram, on Facebook, there's a group called Time to Act, and I hope you'll join it. If you join it, you can do something about this. And on Instagram, I think it's called Time to Act 76. So going back to our anecdotes, when it was the 1970s and women entered the workplace, there was a hustle, a bum's rush. The bum's rush was they didn't enter the workplace. They had an attitude. They had a very witchy attitude, absolutely no empathy, no love in them. And they went and got married to a guy who was the Darwin alpha male, as we were talking about. And the first thing they did is put their two incomes together. But that was a time when the hubby's income still paid the gas and electric bill, and those sorts of things. And so the gals' income, even though it might not have been as much as the guys, was strictly uh, it, it was strictly extra income, and they had a change of attitude. And so what did they do? Well, they went and got into a duplex, and they went and started renting out property to other people. They and once that happens, they'd have more income, so they buy a house and rent it out some more, and it just grows and grows that way. They wouldn't buy a franchise and work that an owner-operator franchise. They would buy a franchise and hire, at the time, hire teenagers to work, and they would hire teenagers. They would work them till they burnt out, fire them, get somebody else. They would work them 6 hours a day without any breaks, and never so many hours. I think it was 20 or 30, because if they worked them anymore, they would have to pay them, pay Social Security and unemployment insurance, stuff like that. In other words, they reinstitutionalized teenagers and women and old people back in the workplace. When I was young and I went to school, I have this stereotypical do-gooder degree, and when I graduated, there was just something horribly wrong. And so I went back and I started taking classes and doing strange things. I took classes in the physics department at the University of Arizona here. Don't ask me if I passed anything. I learned a lot. And I learned that physics professors don't have any emotional training. There were Catholic priests out here, and they had, the Vatican has a telescope here at the University of Arizona. They're very famous for certain things in the physics department, and that's one of them. And it was the Catholic priests who had all this emotional training, and they would constantly fast and go over their life and undo all the chimpanzee side of us. It was the other group, the Carl Sagan group, forgive me for that, they would say there was no God and there was this and that. And then you realized that it didn't have anything to do with an argument. It had to do with the fact that it was uncool to be religious, just like all the other groups. And you just have to go back and learn that. And for our point at the moment, it was quite common for these guys to get together, and they would invest in food franchises, among other things. And food franchises just exploded at the time, and that's why they would invest in it, and they would hire teenagers and women and children, old people to work it, and they didn't think twice about it. In other words, they're the ones who caused all this poverty, and their reasoning was this very emotional, I don't care, I don't have any love in them, I can get away with it, so I have to get away with it. They didn't say, okay, there is no Christ rising on the third day, but we'll still be normal and well-adjusted, and we'll still have a normal supply and demand curve, or in home economics. No, they didn't say that. And that's a terribly important thing. It's terribly important philosophically, because you really do have to have, you have to hold Christ's divinity as faith in order to make things work. In this world, you can go the other way. You can hold absolutes the other way. You can call yourself an intellectual, and they call themselves a class of intellectual, the intellectual class. The Catholics will refer to them as evil. It's a shop manual definition of what evil is. The consequences of that are you'll starve, and you're in dire straits. I think here in Tucson, I took an income of $50,000, which is an incredibly high income for gals, and for a lot of people, it turned out to be about $1,300 a month after taxes. And I started seeing if I could make it work and I had a toddler. And it was, let's see, about $1,600 for a one-bedroom apartment anything less than that, you wouldn't want a child to be in. And it was about $900 plus for daycare to watch somebody else raise your child. And it was at the very cheapest, $200 a month for a car, and about $600 or $800, I forget, for a car insurance. And that doesn't include gas and maintenance and oil and change. And it just went on and on. Health insurance was outrageous. I think it was another $600 or $800 a month. And dental insurance was extra, and that didn't include any of the deductions. On the computer, they said about $100 a month for clothing, and I think that's very underrated. If you're a gal, you need makeup and you need clothes, and that's a big thing. And the child, it quickly spiraled out of way past our income so fast that it was silly. In other words, it's not going to work out. And so you have the individual rights, the people who fought for individual rights, the cost of that. To get something else out that you could use, they had a blank check and unlimited resources. All you have to do, they would say, is increase the national debt. And since you only have to pay interest on that debt, and we're such a large country, you see, you can carry that debt on forever. And therefore, you have to give them everything they want. And that was the logic they used, and it worked. They could simply cause poverty, then come up with a program to try and help those people, and then debt finance it, get somebody else to pay for it. And it just gets worse and worse. So we're getting to the point where if you happen to be listening to this, and you're in Tollesbury, England, I think it's about 5:30 or so right now. And it's 5:15, I think it's approaching, it's 9 o'clock here in Tucson, and about noon in New York. If you're listening to this, please pass the word and join our group. It's time to act. It's for you to do something about it. What's wrong? They threw out God and country. They threw out straightening up your emotions, willing the good of another person, and doing it because Christ rose on the third day. Those three things that make up God and country. They replaced it with throwing out God and having the sexual revolution with its normal into the abnormal, and then making money by causing other people to have to work more hours. And so you have to go back to that. What do you do about it? You go back to God and country. That decision of the Supreme Court in the 1970s is what you go back and look at. That was treason. That was the act of treason. And so one of us is committing treason. It's not this camp, Bob. So I'm sure they'll stand down, and since you can't be a Yank, I straighten myself up emotionally. I will the good of another person. If I choose the married life, I become a good husband, and then a good father, a good mother, a good wife, then a good mother. And if you want to raise children, then that's what you do. And so it becomes a summation of our citizenry, and then summation of household units, and take it from there. And they threw that out. In other words, if you can't be a Yank without being officially Catholic, then you become officially Catholic. You hold the standard. And now a Yank appears. The Pope holds the moral high ground. So I choose to put the Pope in charge. And now I'm not in charge, and you aren't either, and they're not either. Things look a little different. And then, like I said, society is made up the summation of household units, and you get started. And this is where guys like Donald Trump and Elon Musk would be in their glory. How many farms are there? How many mines are there in this country? How many fish in the ocean? What natural resources do you have to work with? You can do wondrous things from there. But this isn't something Donald Trump can do. This isn't anything Elon Musk can do. What Donald Trump did was stand up to a bum's rush, and that's a very good thing for us. He did something that's supposed to be against the laws of physics. He stood up to a bum's rush by himself. He had nobody to help him. That said, we'll stand in, and you have to defend a third person when somebody starts to hustle you. And then you have to ask, wait a minute, what do I fight for? I got to fight for here. A word of warning, if you don't watch it, you're just going to go from the Democrats back to the Republicans. Won't mean anything, just like Ronald Reagan. And it turned out it didn't do any good. You have to know what you fight for. I fight for God and country. I straighten myself up emotionally. I will the good of another person. I adopt a leadership style of washing the feet of the apostles, which turns into a normal supply and demand curve, turns into home economics. And so I'm hoping you'll pass the word and then join our group. Chat in, as they say, so we know what's going on. Look, this is who I am, and this is my budget. And if you're a gal and you can, if you have a traditional is Catholic. Traditional comes out of popes and monks and that sort of thing. That said, if you had a traditional household budget, in other words, it's for you to live in a house. It's for you to get the next generation of kids raised. It's your responsibility. And if you're going to do that, how much of a budget do you need? That's an important thing. It's you're actually, if you're the common housewife, you're sort of part of the Catholic nun. The Catholic nun is a mother to society, and you're sort of inside that. And it's your job, for example, to get the next generation of children. And so you take them, you might take them to the nuns and get a Catholic education, and you would learn what you and I think of as being normal and well-adjusted. It just goes on and on. It doesn't stop. And so what's wrong with you go back to God and country? How do you do it? Well, it's a 3-step process. The first step, it's a 4-step process. The first is separate from the other 3. The first is to publicize just what we're doing here and to gather your gang. You publicize, it's a learned thing. You have to publicize the idea that there's a priest on one side and the pimp on the other. And people who hustle, con, manipulate, and intimidate people are considered the bad guys in this camp. And people who try to be normal and well-adjusted are called the good guys. And you take it from there. It's not a natural thing. And so you have to be taught that. And then the rest, we did have the other 3 go together. There was a revolution in this country, you guys. They did throw out God and country. They did commit treason. They threw out our way of life, this ideal world out of Socrates and Aristotle and Plato that they were trying to institutionalize. And it was working. It was working so well. We had a huge middle class. You're a young man, you got married, you got into a starter house, and that whole world is completely gone, just like all the other countries. That was unique to the United States at the time. Let's see, how do you do it? Well, it's a 4-step process. The first step is to publicize, come up with a course, a 16-week, week-long, follow-along course that you can be first normal and well-adjusted, and then how to stand up to a cheap pimp. And then I'm sure those judges will stand down and go get a garbage sack and go form a class of poverty beneath the class of peasantry that they caused. And that's stage 1. Then stage 2, you would have our own set of reparations. They caused poverty. They went and gotten all the gold and real estate. Well, they give it back. Here in Tucson, somebody came in and bought 1,000 houses, just short of 1,000 houses, turned it into rental property. So I'm sure they'll give those houses back. Then I'm sure they'll get a garbage sack and go join the other gang. And they'll be 1,000 houses to put back in the market, and prices will adjust, and you only sell them to you, the common housewife, and there'll be an adjustment. You'll start to go back to home economics, and things will work out like a charm. That's phase 2. And then phase 3, you build, man, build. You Darwinize the heaven till you get onto a maintenance level, till there's a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. And that's basically the 4 steps. Very clear, candidly honest, works fine, lasts a long time. And so we hope you'll join our gang in the playground, and we'll go to work. It's up to you now. So we'll see you hopefully next Sunday morning at 9 o'clock and next Saturday afternoon around 4. So I hope you pass the word.